Dorothy stepped off the bus at her usual stop, familiar with every driver on this route. She loved this area, which felt like a rural village, despite being on the city's outskirts. The fields and meadows across the road, with a distant forest line, were especially beautiful in summer. The meadow bloomed with vibrant flowers, and the air was filled with the scent of sun-warmed grass under a clear blue sky. This landscape always lifted Dorothy's spirits. She turned and walked toward the old city cemetery, a place she visited weekly. Dorothy knew her way around here very well now. Initially, of course, she came here with her father. After all, when the tragedy happened, she was just a little girl, only 9 years old. Now Dorothy was 13, almost as tall as her father, one of the tallest in her class. Dorothy's mother had been hit by a drunk driver while crossing the street. Witnesses described the car speeding and the driver, unaware due to intoxication, not braking. Dorothy was supposed to be with her mother, but stayed home with a fever that day. Who knows what would have happened to Dorothy if she hadn't been ill? Witnesses called an ambulance and the police. The injured woman was taken to the intensive care unit. Dorothy's father was notified immediately. He had just arrived at the factory where he worked as an electrician and rushed to the hospital. Dorothy didn't know about the accident until evening when her father came home. Seeing her father's haggard face, Dorothy immediately knew something terrible had happened. She had never seen him like this before, pale and dishevelled, with dark circles under his eyes and a look of despair. Her father didn't ask if she had eaten dinner or about her homework. He didn't even ask how she was feeling. He just sat her down, placed his large, firm hand on her shoulder, and delivered the devastating news. Her mother had not survived. The doctors couldn't save her. The injuries were too severe. Of course, Dorothy cried, sobbing until she was utterly exhausted. Her father silently comforted her, stroking her back and head, whispering soothing words. He struggled to hold back his own tears, staying strong for his daughter. He told her that her mother was now in heaven, watching over them and still helping, even though she wasn't physically present. These words, spoken by her father in that difficult moment, deeply touched Dorothy's heart. She clung to them like a drowning person to a lifeline. It was probably the best thing her father could have done for her at that time. For a long time, Dorothy believed it was true. She often looked up at the clouds, feeling that her mother could see her better from there, and it brought comfort to the little girl. Now, as a teenager, Dorothy had almost lost her belief that her mother was watching over them, but the habit of gazing at the sky and clouds remained. Standing in the shade of the trees that grew in abundance on the cemetery grounds, Dorothy felt a familiar sense of calm. Sometimes Dorothy looked at other graves. This quiet cemetery had some old burial sites with people born in the century before last. She examined the old photographs and read the unusual names that were no longer common. This time, Dorothy immediately set to her familiar routine of wiping down the gravestone. In summer, it quickly became dusty and dull. Sometimes the local crows left their marks. Cleaning the memorial, removing dry leaves and litter that the wind often blew in, these tasks had become automatic for Dorothy. In winter there was less to do. She only needed to brush the snow off and occasionally pick up litter. Yet Dorothy visited her mother every Sunday, simply to spend time with her. She had grown accustomed to it. Her father, however, still struggled with these visits. Dorothy understood. The sight of the grave filled her father's eyes with such pain that it was unbearable to look at him. So she took it upon herself to visit and tend to her mother's grave. Unlike her father, it wasn't as difficult for her. Instead, she found a profound closeness to her mother here, and sometimes spoke to her in a soft voice. After the tragedy, Dorothy and her father were left alone in the world. they had no other relatives. Her father Brian had grown up in an orphanage, a fact Dorothy had known since she was young. He had no parents or family ties, though somewhere people who had given birth to him and left him as an infant might still live. Perhaps he even had siblings, nieces or nephews, but finding them now seemed impossible. Her father received an education at the orphanage, then graduated from construction school as a certified electrician. After leaving the orphanage, he served in the army, found a job, and began his adult life. It was challenging to adjust to independence, but the thoughtful young man managed. Then one day he met a girl. Looking into her eyes, he knew he was lost. He had never felt such emotions before. This girl was, of course, Dorothy's mother. Dorothy had heard the story of her parents meeting many times, often from her mother. It happened on a football field. Dorothy's father was an avid football player. After work he played with fellow enthusiasts of all ages. Their team included teenagers and older family men, all united by their love for the game. Though not professional, their matches were lively and emotional, drawing a crowd. Benches and mini stands around the field were always filled with spectators, curious boys, girls admiring the young players, and others simply enjoying the game. One day, on one of those benches sat a young woman who caught the young orphan's eye from the start. Her eyes and soft, gentle smile captivated young Brian. He couldn't focus on the match that evening, his gaze constantly drawn to her. Sometimes their eyes met. After the match he came up to her and struck up a conversation. Soon they started dating, and eventually married. However, they had to move to another city due to some issues. Dorothy never knew the details, whether it was a problem with her father's job or something else. Her father was from an orphanage, but why didn't her mother keep in touch with her own family? She had parents, after all. Naturally, Dorothy asked her parents these questions. At a certain age, she noticed that her friends had grandparents who gave them gifts, cooked delicious pancakes, took them to the cinema and amusement parks, and simply loved and adored them. Dorothy wanted that too. Dorothy's parents didn't like discussing such topics, and even though she was just a child, she understood this. My parents, you see, we've become strangers to each other. It sometimes happens, her mother explained, somewhat confused. We don't talk anymore. They don't even know they have such a wonderful granddaughter. Maybe you should tell them. Perhaps you'll reconcile them, Dorothy suggested. No, sweetheart, her mother sadly shook her head. Sometimes situations can't be fixed or undone. Does that mean we could become strangers too? Dorothy asked, startled by her own conclusion. No, of course not, her mother smiled, hugging her tightly. We are the closest people in the world, but in my family, even in childhood, I felt like an outsider. There was never any warmth or acceptance between us, but you, me and Dad are the closest and dearest to each other. We will always be together. Dorothy tried not to pester her mother with questions because she saw that it was painful for her to remember her relatives. And she was content that, in their small family, everyone loved and supported each other. Her father was cheerful and strong, always coming up with interesting ideas to surprise and delight his daughter and wife. Her mother was understanding and caring. What more could she ask for? Dorothy knew the answer. She dreamed of having a little brother or sister, but her parents explained that they needed to get on their feet and become more independent before thinking about a second child. Dorothy desperately wanted that moment to come soon, but a drunk driver shattered all the plans and hopes of their happy little family. He was quickly found and brought to trial. The culprit turned out to be a young man, the son of a local official. He wasn't even sentenced to jail. Miraculously, it was determined that the brakes of his fancy new car had failed, making the accident seem like an unavoidable event. Witnesses testified that the young man could barely speak when he was apprehended. He was so intoxicated. But these testimonies somehow disappeared. The examination miraculously showed no alcohol in the driver's blood, unsurprising given his father's influence and connections. The parents of the culprit paid a small fine and the case was closed. Dorothy's father tried to seek justice, appealing to courts and the prosecutor's office, demanding a more thorough investigation. It was important to him that the culprit faced some punishment. But he encountered obstacles everywhere. Dorothy didn't care if the driver was punished or not. She just wanted the father to be by her side more often during that difficult time, to hug her, tell her how her mother was watching over them from heaven, and stroke her hair. But often she was left alone while her father rushed between institutions, hoping to achieve justice. Later, Dorothy realized that, perhaps by taking on so many tasks, he was trying to distract himself from the unbearable pain. Her father seemed like a different person after the tragedy. He rarely smiled or joked anymore, and no longer initiated loud, cheerful games with his daughter, as he used to. Instead, he started cooking and learned to braid Dorothy's hair before school. Time passed. The household routine between father and daughter fell into place quickly. Their home was always clean and filled with the aroma of delicious food. Together, they made a good team. A couple of times, Dorothy tried to ask her father about her mother's parents. She knew they existed, but her father was reluctant to talk about them.
"They treated your mother poorly. Maybe not out of malice, I don't know. But she didn't want to communicate with them, and neither did they. When the tragedy happened, I tried to contact them. I called her mother several times. As soon as she heard my voice, she hung up. They don't even know what happened to their daughter."
"That's strange. Aren't they curious about where she is or what happened to her?" Dorothy asked.
"Indeed it is strange," Brian agreed. "Once, these people simply cut their daughter out of their lives for not being convenient enough for them."
Every time Brian talked about Dorothy's mother's relatives, he would sink into dark memories. A shadow would cross his face, and his eyes would fill with sadness and grief. Dorothy didn't like seeing her father like this, so she tried not to press him with questions. There was some secret in their family. Dorothy understood this. But if it was too painful for her father to remember, she wouldn't insist. Perhaps when she was a little older, he would tell her everything openly. For now, it seemed he was protecting her from something. Dorothy vigorously wiped the gravestone, alone in the cemetery grounds, as she often was. Sometimes she would encounter other visitors, and during religious holidays, the place would be crowded. The first time she came here alone were a couple of years ago. Before that, her father would take her to the cemetery, but it was rare. So one day, Dorothy took the number 6 bus by herself and arrived at the familiar stop. She wasn't afraid of getting lost. She knew the way very well. Initially, the girl felt uneasy. Alone in the cemetery, not a soul around. But then she felt a sense of calm and tranquility. From that day forward, Dorothy began visiting the cemetery every Sunday. Her father, upon learning of her trips, was surprised, but not angry.
"Aren't you afraid to go there alone?"
he asked. "No," Dorothy honestly replied.
"At least, please let me know when you're going there. I need to know where my child is," he said.
Since then, Dorothy always informed her father before heading to the cemetery. Sometimes he would accompany her, and other times he would send a bouquet of flowers with her to place to the grave. After finishing her cleaning, the girl started to weed the flowers. She had successfully grown bright peonies near the grave, but weeds appeared at an astonishing rate, keeping her busy. Suddenly, Dorothy felt someone watching her. She turned around abruptly. People in the cemetery were a common sight, as many came to visit their relatives, but someone was staring intently at Dorothy, which was unusual. The girl met the gaze of sad grey eyes. A woman was looking directly at her. Her face seemed vaguely familiar. Dorothy was sure she had seen her somewhere before. The woman looked at the girl with an expression of longing. Tears streamed down her cheeks, unnoticed by the stranger. Dorothy often saw such looks. Many people looked at her with pity, especially here at the cemetery. But she had never seen such tears and pain, according to a passer-by. Dorothy instinctively stepped back, away from the strange woman. Perhaps the visitor was deeply grieving her own loss. After all, she had come to the cemetery. She held a bouquet of daisies in her hands. Dorothy's mother had also loved daisies, so her father always tried to bring them here. "Hello," Dorothy stammered. Usually she didn't speak to other visitors, and they didn't speak to her either. It wasn't customary, but this situation was strange. "Hello," the woman replied with a smile. "Do we know each other?" the girl asked. The situation was becoming increasingly strange and confusing. The woman clearly had no intention of moving on. She looked at Dorothy, at the photograph of her mother on the gravestone, and couldn't hold back her tears. At least she didn't approach, because Dorothy was starting to feel anxious. No, we don't know each other, but I knew your mother very well," the woman finally said, noticing her own tears and hastily wiping them away with her sleeve. She was clearly trying to compose herself. So the strange woman knew her mother. That's why she brought daisies. They must have been close at some point. This was interesting. Perhaps the visitor could tell Dorothy something new about her mother. The girl was always curious to learn more, as she was very young when everything happened. Dorothy stepped aside, letting the woman approach the grave. "Cora," the woman said with a smile through her tears. She came closer and placed the flowers by the gravestone. "I finally found you, though I didn't expect to see this. I thought we would talk. I have so much to tell you." Dorothy decided to leave the woman alone with her grief. It seemed she had recently learned of her friend's passing. Let her cry in peace. Dorothy would take the bag of dry leaves to the trash pile. She wouldn't disturb this woman. Let her express her feelings. Later they would talk. Dorothy wondered who she was, and why she didn't know about her friend's fate. Did she know anything about her mother's parents? Questions swirled in Dorothy's mind. When she returned, the woman looked almost calm. She smiled at the girl again. "You've grown up so much," the stranger said. "How old are you?" 13, Dorothy replied. "What a wonderful age. Time flies so quickly. It seems like just yesterday your mother and I were the same age, and now—" "Let me introduce myself. My name is Eva. And yes, I've known your mother since she was a little girl." "And I'm Dorothy," the girl introduced herself, remembering her manners. The woman's face lit up with a warm, genuine smile. "Of course, Dorothy. Do you know why your mother liked that name so much?" The girl smiled and nodded. It was her mother's favourite childhood book, The Wizard of Oz. "Your mum had read it countless times, watched the animated film, named all her dolls Dorothy, and even playfully chided her parents for not naming her Dorothy." Dorothy was taken aback. Eva clearly knew her mum's family very well. If she was a friend, she must have been a very close one. But why had Dorothy's mother never mentioned her? Dorothy knew Megan and Sasha, her mother's friends and colleagues, who often visited their home. Dorothy was friends with their children, but her mother had never spoken about this Eva. "How do you know my mother?" Dorothy asked. "Oh dear, we need to talk. A serious and thorough conversation," Eva replied. "Maybe we should go somewhere else. This will be a long and difficult discussion, and we need a quiet place." Dorothy nodded in agreement. She was completely on board with this woman's suggestion.
My car is parked nearby, Eva offered. We could drive to a cafe and talk there. Afterward, I can take you home. Dorothy shook her head. No, I definitely won't get into a car with a stranger. Eva quickly corrected herself. Oh, sorry, I understand. You're right not to trust a stranger. That was thoughtless of me. I wasn't prepared to see you here. It caught me off guard. I wasn't ready. Dorothy smiled, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. She had feared that Eva might be offended by her caution, but instead she praised her for being vigilant. There's a roadside cafe nearby, Dorothy suggested. We just need to walk about 200 metres along the roadside. I saw it, Eva nodded. Let's take a walk. I actually enjoy walking. Me too, Dorothy confessed. Surprisingly, Dorothy found it easy and pleasant to talk to this stranger. There was something familiar about Eva's face, but Dorothy couldn't quite place where or when she had seen her before. As they walked, they chatted about Dorothy's life. Eva asked ordinary questions: what grade she was in, how many friends she had, and what subjects she enjoyed. Dorothy could tell that Eva was genuinely interested in her life. This wasn't just small talk. Eva truly cared. Dorothy enjoyed sharing her experiences and achievements. When Eva learned that Dorothy had won a city-wide literature competition, she was thrilled. Well, isn't that something? The power of genes, Eva exclaimed, though the phrase was lost on Dorothy. This woman sparked many questions in the girl's mind, and she hoped to find answers soon. Finally, they reached the cafe. Quite cosy, Eva remarked. Dorothy nodded, though she had never been inside before. She had often seen the cafe from the bus on her way to the cemetery, but never imagined she would one day be a customer. Eva chose a table by the window, and they settled into comfortable chairs across from each other. She seemed nervous, unsure of where to begin. Dorothy waited patiently, her heart racing with anticipation. "How are things with your father?" Eva asked suddenly. "Good," Dorothy replied honestly. "He's my only family now. He works a lot and is still grieving, but he tries so hard to make my life happy. I just wish he would joke and smile again like he used to. I hope the old him will return someday. He just needs more time." Eva smiled. "I never doubted it. Brian has always been wonderful. It's a shame not everyone in our family saw that." Dorothy nodded, waiting for the promised truth. "Did your father tell you anything about your mother's family?" Eva asked. "Very little," Dorothy replied. "I understand there was some big argument, but I don't know the details. When I was younger, it didn't matter to me. Now, after what happened to Mum, it's too painful for him to talk about, so I don't press him with questions." "You're a wise and sensitive girl," Eva said with a sad sigh. "Poor Brian. He loved Cora so much. More than himself, more than life. How is he coping?" "He's trying his best," Dorothy said. "I think it's because of you," Eva smiled. Then she began her long-awaited story. Dorothy listened intently, sometimes forgetting to breathe, captivated by the story. Once upon a time, in a small, wonderful town, lived two sisters. They were born into a wealthy family. Their father was a successful and well-known businessman, almost a monopolist in the town. Their mother worked as the chief accountant at a large factory, but left her position after giving birth to her daughters. It was a mutual decision by the couple. Someone had to take care of the children. The sisters wanted for nothing in their childhood. They lived with their parents in a beautiful country house. A large garden, their own playground with swings and a carousel, a swimming pool, even a small tree house. The girls' wishes were fulfilled almost instantly. An expensive toy from the toy store, a dress for the school play from a branded boutique, worth an average salary by the standards of their hometown,
The girls were taken to resorts. They travelled extensively with their parents across the country and the world. They had birthday parties that resembled fairy tale balls. Both lived in an atmosphere of universal love and acceptance, like two little princesses. The elder sister was named Eva, the younger, Cora. The age difference between the girls was only 1 year. It was no surprise that they found each other so interesting. They were best friends. Their parents dreamed of having a son, but the closely spaced births had adversely affected the mother's health. She could no longer have children, despite being treated by the best doctors in the country. Eva and Cora knew about this problem because their father often blamed their mother for not being able to give him an heir. Later, Eva learned that when Cora was born instead of a son, he blamed their mother. He shouted at her right on the day of the birth. Their mother was the closest person to Eva and Cora, soft, loving, silent, ready to fulfill all the whims and desires of her little girls. She could be told anything. She never argued about anything. Their nanny maintained order and discipline, and many tricks didn't work with her. They couldn't eat a pastry before soup or go to bed late at night, but their mother allowed the girls everything. "How can I refuse you?" she would smile in response to any request from her daughters. Years later, the woman confessed that she just wanted to prolong the happy period of her little ones' lives. She knew that when her daughters grew up, they would have to face their father's despotism. He would command his daughters just as he did his wife, and there was nothing that could be done about it. Who was their father to the little girls in their early childhood? Someone distant, but loving and omnipotent. The girls knew that everything, absolutely everything, was within his power. It was he who created the world for his family with his own hands. The girls both feared and loved him. Their father was kind to his little daughters, but they always felt his cruelty and strength, so they tried to please him, to make him smile, to make his eyes light up with happiness. With their mother, the girls could be themselves, but their father's favour had to be earned. Time passed, the girls grew up, and soon it was time to go to school. The age difference allowed the sisters to be placed in the same class. Their father thought it was a great idea to put his daughters in the same class. Their mother tried to object. This was one of those rare times when she did not unquestioningly agree with her husband's opinion. Cora was still a child. How could she study? She should be dancing, drawing and playing with dolls all day. But as always, the objections were not accepted.
"No need to waste another year on nonsense,"
their father confidently replied.
"Let her start learning too. Eva will be there. She can help if needed."
The start of school coincided with the end of the sisters' happy childhood. Not that the girls disliked studying. They were enrolled in a prestigious school with attentive, caring teachers and beautiful, well-equipped classrooms. Being in this institution was interesting and engaging, but now their father had serious expectations for his daughters. The little ones had to go out of their way to meet the ideals of their strict father. Unconditional love was no longer an option. Eva and Cora had to get straight A's. Even a B was considered a failure. In addition to this, the sisters had many other responsibilities. They had to engage in scientific projects and be the best students in the class. They also had to excel in sports. Their father dreamed of perfect children. He did a lot to achieve his goal. From the very first grade, the girls were tutored in reading and mathematics. They also attended numerous extracurricular activities, such as swimming, choreography, and language centres. And of course, they still had to excel in school with their lessons and projects. The girls had to be the best here too. Their mother and nanny drove Eva and Cora to these additional activities. Their father inquired about the results and only occasionally attended competitions. Eva still remembered how she cried at her first swimming tournament. She and Cora had finished in the top 5, but did not win any prizes. The girls were happy and proud of themselves. During training, they showed much worse results, but at the competition they gave it their all. But their father, who had come to the tournament, looked disappointed. He wanted medals. He looked at his little daughters with reproach.
"Couldn't you have tried harder?"
the man sneered.
"Both of you take after your mother, it seems. If you had a brother, he would have shown you the success."
Their mother, sitting nearby, said nothing as usual. She didn't think to stand up for her daughters. Only when she grew older did Eva understand that her mother didn't intervene so as not to anger her husband further. If she had said a word, he would have said even more hurtful things to his wife and already upset daughters. Eva cried from the hurt, not in front of her parents, no. Their father did not tolerate any signs of weakness. The girl sobbed in her room. Cora sat next to her and stroked her older sister's back. She had always been stronger and more internally free. From an early age, the younger sister's character was evident. It was difficult to upset her or provoke her. Such was her indomitable spirit. The girls found it challenging to meet their father's high expectations. Over time, they learned, like their mother, to present the truth in a way that satisfied him. They had to be cunning and deceptive, but what did it matter? The important thing was that their father was pleased. This way, everyone was at peace. The father became increasingly stern and demanding. It was important to him that his children surpassed the children of his friends and partners in everything.
"Even though I don't have a son, my daughters will outshine everyone,"
the man would proudly declare when Eva or Cora reported their latest victory. It was an endless race. "It's good that we don't have a brother," Cora often said. "He would have had it tough." Eva would nod in agreement. Their father had so many plans and hopes for the son who never came that it would have been impossible for anyone to carry such a burden. The girls still had everything they wanted: beautiful clothes, travels, pocket money. The only thing they lacked was freedom. Their father controlled every aspect of their lives: school, extracurricular activities, leisure time. Though he spent much time at work, he still managed to restrict his daughter's freedom. He had many ways to do this: nannies, tutors, and his wife. The father decided what his daughters would do. For a long time, he tried to turn Eva and Cora into skilled programmers. Renowned teachers were hired, and the girls attended countless courses, but they never grasped the subject. They spent so much time trying to understand this elusive science, but it remained incomprehensible. Despite their enormous efforts, it was all for naught. Their father was furious, calling his daughters stupid and lazy. He demanded results and paid no heed to their pleas that they were trying their best but failing. Even the opinions of the programming teachers held no sway with him. He believed they were only after more money, claiming the girls were hopeless. For 2 years, Cora and Eva had to engage daily in a heated and utterly confusing pursuit. It was hard and frustrating. Cora dreamed of attending dance classes instead. She was graceful and light on her feet, admired by all who saw her perform. The choreographer said she had a bright future. But their father dismissed dance as frivolous. He didn't care that his daughter dreamed of the stage.
"Dance is fine for general development,"
he would say,
"but it's not something to take seriously. You need a serious profession that will make you wealthy. These dances are nonsense."
He felt the same way about Eva's passion for drawing. From a young age, she showed remarkable talent. But there was no time for art school. She had to teach herself using online courses and tutorials. Her drawings gained admiration, and she joined art communities where she received praise and compliments. Their mother quietly admired Eva's work, knowing her husband's disapproval.
"Any fool can draw pictures," their father would say. "It doesn't take much intelligence, and it won't feed anyone. If something happens to me or I lose my business, a poor artist will starve. Better to become a programmer and have a stable career. Or maybe lawyer."
In the end, the girls didn't become programmers. Their father had to admit that the time and money were wasted. The day that they were told they no longer had to study programming, the sisters felt an indescribable relief. But their father had a new challenge in store for them. Now, both girls were to become successful lawyers. New activities began. Well, it wasn't that Eva and Cora had dreamed of, but it was much simpler and clearer. Their father was indeed always fearful. He feared losing his business, his large home, and his social standing. He understood that such a fate could befall him at any moment. He had seen it happen to acquaintances. He did not want to return to poverty, to life as he had in his youth. Perhaps in his struggle for financial security, he had to become hardened, unyielding and categorical. Disagreements, discontent and differing opinions were seen as betrayal, a threat to the family's security, and were harshly suppressed. Eva was like her mother. She also considered her father almost a deity, upon whom their family's life depended. Who were they compared to this outstanding man? They had to obey him, and his orders had to be followed unquestionably. But Cora, she was always different. She was not satisfied with such a life. From a young age, Cora was the only one in the family who dared to defy her father openly. She tried to express her opinions, presented reasonable arguments, and argued with him, sometimes pushing him to the brink. He would get angry, lose his temper, and resort to punishments. These punishments mainly involved restrictions. For example, Cora would be forbidden to watch TV, attend her beloved dance classes, or eat sweets for a certain period. Of course, there was no question of meeting friends. The girls rarely socialized with their peers. There simply wasn't time. But occasionally they would go to the movies or walk in the park with classmates. Both sisters cherished these outings, but their father could easily deprive disobedient Cora of such pleasures. This was particularly hard for her to bear. Sometimes it was worse. If their father was furious, he would forbid Cora from leaving her room. Consequently, Eva was not allowed to visit her sister, to talk or comfort her. Their mother was also forbidden from doing so. Sometimes Cora would spend 2 or 3 days in such confinement, with meals brought to her room. Her father was frightened by Cora's independence and defiance. He often said that these traits would cause serious problems for Cora and the entire family.
"Your stubborn, foolish character will be your downfall," he would often exclaim while arguing with his rebellious daughter,
and Eva was afraid. She feared for her sister and her future. She felt sorry for Cora, who was so often a prisoner in her own home. "I'm a prisoner?" Cora would ask in response to her older sister's words. "Yes, he makes me stay in this room, but at least sometimes I say what I think and I do what I want. You and Mum are the real prisoners of this house and father." At first, Eva did not understand what her sister meant. How was she a prisoner? Cora was the one he did not allow leaving her room, while Eva could go out any time she wanted, even to the store. But only quickly, because she had classes at the law school in an hour. The driver would pick her up soon. Only later did Eva realize that her sister was right. And indeed, Cora did eventually free herself, though at what cost? But for her, freedom was more precious than comfort, good relations with her parents, and even communication with her older sister, which was the most painful loss. Cora allowed herself many liberties. She could easily skip additional classes to go to the movies with friends from school. Yes, her father might find out and punish her, but that would be later. For Cora, immediate freedom was more important. Was it worth it to be locked up for 2 days? Eva would ask her sister, standing outside Cora's door. It was worth it, Cora would confidently reply. We walked around the city, then watched a movie together, and laughed so hard that the walls of the cinema shook. And then we strolled through the park, talking about everything. I had so much fun. It was definitely worth it. Come with us next time. But Eva never broke her father's rules as a child. She was obedient and very convenient. It was important to her that her father considered her good, that he loved and respected her. And indeed, her father often held Eva up as an example to her younger sister. But Eva always knew that no matter how Cora behaved, their father favoured her. Because the younger daughter was as strong and energetic as their father had once been. Their characters were similar in many ways, except Cora never tried to suppress anyone.
Cora will achieve great things.
Their father often shared this opinion with his wife.
She knows what she wants and always stubbornly pursues her goals. With such a character, she can either reach unprecedented heights or get into serious trouble. She needs to be watched until she matures. And then she will pleasantly surprise us all.
Eva found these words hurtful. It seemed that their father had high hopes for Cora, despite her rebellious behaviour. He valued and respected her more. And Eva, who always tried to obey her parents and not upset them, felt overshadowed by her free-spirited younger sister. Nothing extraordinary was expected of her. In their early childhood, Eva and Cora were best friends, but as they grew older, their interests and behaviours changed, and the sisters drifted apart. This saddened Eva greatly. She adored Cora and wanted to be like her in many ways, though she knew it was impossible. Cora also loved her sister, but she found it more interesting to socialise with her many friends. Eva, on the other hand, never formed such a social circle. She always obeyed her father, who disapproved of idle pastimes. So Eva spent hours studying law instead of sneaking out with friends like Cora. Her sister's life seemed attractive but dangerous. Eva feared many things: her parents' disapproval, harsh teenage jokes, and the potential dangers that could befall children on the streets. Cora, however, feared nothing. She eagerly awaited her adulthood to finally live life on her own terms. She dreamed of dropping out of law lessons and getting a job. "Father will ruin you," Eva warned. "I'll officially be an adult," Cora grinned. "What can he do to me?" When the girls finished school, their father enrolled them in a prestigious economics university, as planned. Eva enjoyed her studies. With time at university, Eva became the top student in her class, earning her father's approval. Cora, however, barely passed her courses. She didn't bother much with her studies. Free from her strict father's control, she enjoyed student life and seemed happy and content. Surprisingly, her mediocre grades didn't bother her. Cora was mistaken in thinking that adulthood would free her from her father's control. He had no intention of letting her go until she completed her education. Eva suspected that he would continue to control their lives even afterward. Their father had a clear plan for his daughters. They would graduate, work for him, become co-owners of his company, and marry men he approved of, likely the sons of his business partners, as he had dreamed of strengthening his empire. Eva had no objections to this plan. Cora, wiser with experience, knew not to openly defy her father. She once dreamed of leaving her studies, but tried and failed.
Her father's fury was so intense that the windows shook. Eva locked herself in her room, covering her ears, but she could still hear every word. Their father threatened to commit Cora to a specialized hospital if she continued to defy him, and he had the power to do so. Cora understood that he could follow through on his threat. He cared little for his adult daughter's wishes and plans. As the head of the family, he believed he knew best what would make his family happy.
"I'll have you declared incompetent," he threatened, "and you'll spend years locked away until you learn how to behave."
Cora abandoned her plans, not wanting to end up in an institution. Their father, with his connections and money, could make good on his threat if he ran out of other ways to control her. Cora often told her sister that their father was crazy and that normal people didn't behave like that, but she knew better than to provoke him further. Thus, the girl began to play the role of an obedient daughter, but at night she often snuck out of the house to go to a club with friends and let loose. She couldn't fully submit to her strict father. Eva tried to reason with her younger sister. If their father found out about her deception, he would indeed send her to a clinic. "I already live like I'm in a prison," Cora would say with a melancholic smile. "If I don't have these rare moments of freedom, I don't know what will happen to me. I can't live like this." Eva understood that a real catastrophe was inevitable. The despotic father and the freedom-loving daughter were both strong-willed. A storm was brewing, and so it happened, eventually. But that came later, after Cora met Brian. The father became concerned about his daughter's future while they were still in school. Almost from her teenage years, Eva knew whom she would marry when the time came. Matthew, the son of her father's business partner, was slightly older than her. Tall, slim, with a charming smile and intelligent, thoughtful eyes. Eva had no objections to this match. At first, it was just jokes among adults at the table, hinting at a future union. But the father gradually prepared his eldest daughter for a life with Matthew. It was a strategic move. Children from wealthy families would gain worthy partners, and their families would combine their assets. Naturally, Eva felt a bit awkward around Matthew, but he seemed uncomfortable too. But overall, the pair got along easily and naturally. Matthew took the first step, as a gentleman should, inviting Eva to the cinema. She gladly accepted. Finally, she would go out with a friend on her own terms, not just sneaking around like Cora. Unlike her sister, Eva had her father's official permission for this outing, which was significant. She didn't have to sneak out and return home secretly. The relationship developed textbook perfectly. Flowers, dates, compliments, kisses. A mutual affection blossomed between them, leading to the expected proposal. Eva was both excited and nervous. What would it be like to live away from her parents, to be her own person? She was used to relying on her father's opinion and authority, but now he wouldn't be there. Could Matthew be the strong, reliable support she needed? He didn't seem very influential or strong, but perhaps his best days were ahead. On the eve of the wedding, Cora genuinely rejoiced for her sister. "I see you're truly in love with this Matthew of yours," she smiled. "You're right," Eva admitted. "And it's wonderful. I want to experience something like that someday too." "What about those friends you go to clubs and movies with?" Eva asked, genuinely surprised. Cora had had several casual flings, which her older sister was aware of. "Oh, those are just friends, just for fun. I dream of a real deep feeling, something that sweeps me off my feet." Eva married and moved with her husband into a spacious apartment in the city centre, a gift from their parents. Her life took an entirely new turn. Living under her father's wing, Eva had missed out on a lot. Her father had sheltered his daughters from so much that, by her early 20s, she had no idea how fun and exciting life could be. Matthew introduced his young wife to a new world.
They went to clubs, strolled the city streets until dawn, and hosted parties at home. It was fun and exhilarating. Eva began to understand her younger sister's attraction to this lifestyle. Meanwhile, Cora, like her older sister, worked as a lawyer in one of their father's companies. She was good at it, but often told Eva it wasn't her true calling. "I am eager to work with people," she would say, "maybe even with children, but here it's all numbers, papers, reports. It feels like I'm doing pointless work." "Why pointless?" Eva would argue. "We're helping Father run his business." She enjoyed her work, delving into reports, unravelling complex schemes. It was calm yet engaging. Working with people, on the other hand, seemed too unpredictable and stressful. Then something in Cora subtly changed. Eva, who knew her better than anyone, immediately noticed that her sister had a secret. Her dreamy, thoughtful eyes and the smile that frequently lit up her face hinted at something new. One day, when Cora visited her older sister, Eva asked what had been on her mind. "What's going on with you? I can see something's happened. Come on, tell me." Cora looked at her sister and couldn't help but smile. It lit up her beautiful face with an inner glow, making her already striking features even more attractive. "You're right, little sister," Cora said, almost singing the words. "Yes, I have news. I met someone, and I've finally fallen in love, just as I always dreamed. The dizziness, the butterflies in my stomach, all that romantic nonsense." "Wow," exclaimed Eva. She didn't know whether to be happy for her sister or worried. It was unlikely that Cora's chosen one was the portly and boring Peter, the son of their father's business partner. Both old friends had long seen him as a potential match for Cora, though the bride-to-be never took these talks seriously. She thought they were just jokes and teasing. But Eva knew better. She understood. Their father wasn't joking. He would eventually force Cora to marry Peter. It was difficult to imagine a more mismatched couple. "I still can't believe we met." Cora shared her joy. "It was such a chance encounter. It could have easily never happened, but we did meet, and now I'm happy." Eva smiled, but her heart was troubled. Meanwhile, Cora talked about her new acquaintance. As she listened to Cora describe her chosen one, Eva grew more anxious. Their father would never approve of this choice. A charming and charismatic orphan, recently graduated from college and completed his military service. He rented a tiny apartment in the most remote and unfavourable part of the city and worked at a local factory, earning very little. No property, no family, and no prospects. It was the worst possible match. Their father couldn't have imagined a more unsuitable son-in-law, even in his worst nightmares. At first, Eva worried that Brian was just a gold digger. Their father had warned them that, as children of wealthy parents, they might encounter such people.
"They're cunning and resourceful,"
their father would say.
"They need to survive, so they know how to adapt. They're professionals at sweet-talking. Many fall for it, even experienced women."
But when Eva met Brian, she realised her fears were unfounded. The young man was genuinely in love with her sister. It was evident in his eyes and every gesture. The tenderness with which he held Cora's hand or put his arm around her shoulder couldn't be faked. He seemed to be trying to hide his feelings from others, revealing a modest and simple nature, honest and straightforward, willing to do anything for his beloved. Brian made a good impression on Eva. Yes, with a man like him, her sister would truly be happy. But this union could never be. They might date for a while, but once their father found out, he would quickly put an end to it. He had entirely different plans for his younger daughter's future, and he was becoming more vocal about them.
"I'll marry you off to Peter and finally have some peace,"
their father would joke, glancing at Cora.
"And then let him deal with you."
It didn't sound grave, but he genuinely intended to marry his daughter to his partner's son. Everyone knew it, including Cora. "Never," Cora would respond in the same playful tone. "Anyone but Peter. I'd rather stay single forever than marry such a boring oaf." Their father immediately began extolling the virtues of his future son-in-law and the marriage in general.
"Peter is ambitious, strong and promising," he admired. "He has already achieved so much in business, and many more victories lie ahead. What a character! So young, yet already so firm. He'll go far, so don't turn up your nose, especially since he clearly has feelings for you. Don't scare him away."
In this their father was not mistaken. Peter was indeed ambitious and strong. Life with him would be much like living with her father. Cora would have to become a silent, submissive woman, anticipating her husband's every desire and fearing his displeasure. But Cora was not like that. She would not live that way, especially not now that she had Brian. They were so happy together. The young couple truly complemented each other, like two halves of a whole. Eva worried about the situation. Their father spoke of the upcoming wedding as if it were a done deal. Cora argued with him, trying to explain that this was not the Middle Ages, when parents did not seek their children's consent for marriage. Their father grew heated, trying to convince his young daughter that he knew best how to act in such situations.
"I have experience, connections, thousands of examples before my eyes. Eva married the man I chose for her, and she is happy. The same will happen to you."
"No," Cora shouted at him. "I'm tired of my opinion not being considered, even in such matters. I am an adult, an independent person."
"You are nothing without me," their father retorted. "Everything you have, your education, your job, your home, your trinkets, is thanks to me. Where would you be without your rich daddy? Mopping floors, shuffling papers in a third-rate office for pennies, living paycheck to paycheck? Everything you have is my doing."
Such arguments became more frequent in the house. Cora hoped to make her father see reason, to understand her perspective, but her father decided to hasten the wedding and even began preparations.
"They'll grow to love each other,"
he assured his wife and elder daughter when they expressed doubts. "Maybe we should wait a bit," Eva suggested. "Let Cora cool down, calm herself. She will understand that you are right, but for now it's best not to pressure her."
"That's precisely why I think it's time for her to get married. Peter will handle her. He knows he's getting a rebellious one and is ready for the challenges. A real man."
And then Cora herself revealed her relationship with Brian to her father in the heat of another argument. "You've never considered anyone's opinion," Cora accused. "You never cared about the feelings of other family members. Not Mum, not Eva, not me. We have no right to say or do what we truly want."
"That's because I am responsible for you," their father countered with the same arguments. "Do you think it's easy? Especially with a daughter as stubborn and disobedient as you."
"You're just used to everyone obeying you," Cora continued to argue.
"I don't want to hear that nonsense anymore. The wedding is in exactly 1 month."
Their father finally declared in a tone that left no room for doubt.
"You clearly need a firm hand. Peter is the man who can handle you. I am sure of it."
"I won't go near that man."
"You have no choice."
"Then I'll run away. I have someone I love and he loves me. We will be together, whether you like it or not." Cora caught herself, realizing she had said too much. It was too early to tell the family about Brian, far too early, but their father had heard all he needed, and a flicker of concern crossed his eyes.
"And who is he?"
he asked, now more calmly. "You will never know." Cora shook her head. "I just said it in the heat of the moment. He's just a friend, it doesn't matter." Cora desperately tried to fix the situation, but it was difficult to hide the truth from her father. He was good at reading people, and now he noticed that his younger daughter was indeed seeing someone, and the relationship was grave. Of course, the father found out about Brian. He must have had someone follow Cora, perhaps even hired a detective. In any case, he soon had comprehensive information about Brian. Naturally, the father was furious. He concluded that Cora was deliberately trying to spite him by choosing the most unsuitable person imaginable.
You might as well have dated a homeless man, he sneered after a family dinner one evening.
Who would have doubted that you'd stick your nose into my life again? Cora sighed. Well, now that you know everything, I guess I can leave. I've wanted to for a long time, but...
Go ahead,
the father agreed unexpectedly calmly.
Leave right now. In the clothes you're wearing. You won't take any of your belongings. No expensive jewellery. No designer clothes. No phone that's worth more than your pauper's apartment. Because I bought all of that for you, and you don't respect or appreciate me. So, go live on your own.
Of course, Cora nodded, rising from the table.
And naturally you won't be working at my company starting tomorrow, the father continued. Figure it out yourself, since you're so grown up and smart.
Cora nodded silently again. She went upstairs to her room, quickly gathered her documents, and came back down. Thanks for finally understanding me, she smiled at her father. Maybe one day you'll come around, and we can talk like father and daughter again. Cora left. She went to Brian, and they began their life together. She found a job as a teacher in an elementary school. She had to take special training courses, but she enjoyed learning, and she loved her work. I'm so happy, Cora shared with her sister. Brian and I support each other in everything. He's so caring and attentive. He works hard for me. It's so sweet. He worries that I had a better life with father. He doesn't understand anything yet. I'm truly happy now. Happy, and with the man I love, and finally free. Cora also loved her new job. She had always wanted to work with people, especially children. She enjoyed seeing the results of her efforts and making others happy. Now she finally felt she was in the right place. But Eva knew their father wouldn't leave Cora alone. She often saw him in a gloomy mood and understood who was causing his distress. He still hoped she would come crawling back, unable to endure the hardships of poverty, but that didn't happen, and he grew angry. One day, Eva overheard a conversation between her father and an old friend who confirmed her suspicions. Noah Anderson, the local police chief, dropped by for a cup of coffee. It was nothing unusual. Old friends often visited. Their mother, as always, set a lovely table, and the men chatted for a while before retreating to the father's study. Eva was staying with her parents at that time because Matthew had left for his business trip. She watched TV in the living room for a bit before heading to her room. Her path took her past her father's study, and when she heard her sister's name, she stopped to listen.
I thought she'd come crawling back within a week, maybe a month, the father confided in his friend. But she's living like she's perfectly content, impoverished with some penniless, low-born man. Love makes even a shack a paradise, Noah remarked profoundly. She's just foolish and young, doesn't understand she's ruining her own life, the father replied. That's true, Noah agreed. I need your help. We need to put Cora's boyfriend behind bars for a good long while. Out of sight, out of mind. Send him off to a far-off colony. Cora will panic, suffer a bit, and then calm down. She'll realise her father was right. Her boyfriend will turn out to be not just a pauper, but a criminal. I've always told her that poverty breeds vice. Let her see it for herself.
Eva went cold. She knew her father always got his way, but at what cost? Was he eager to frame an innocent man just to have his way? Eva suddenly felt immense pity for Brian. He does not deserve this. This sincere and kind young man should not end up in prison.
It can be done, Noah replied. There are foolproof schemes. Your almost son-in-law will go away for a long time. Well, thank you, friend. I won't forget this.
Returning to her room, Eva immediately dialed her sister's number and told her everything. "Thank you so much for the warning," Cora said after listening to Eva. "If Brian had been imprisoned, I would have followed him. We both would have been miserable. But now we must flee the city, and urgently. We probably won't see each other for a long time." "Where will you go?" Eva asked, frightened. Only now did she realise that she and her sister were parting for many years. "I don't know yet," Cora replied. "Brian and I still need to decide, but we can't stay here. Only parting with you is hard." That was the last conversation between the sisters. Though Eva didn't know it then, she thought such a thing was impossible. Sooner or later she and Cora would meet again, and everything would be fine. But it was not meant to be. Their father was furious when he found out they had disappeared. He hired detectives, reported to the police, and turned the city upside down. But Cora and Brian had vanished without a trace. Finding this couple in our vast country was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The father had to accept it. He tried to find Cora for many years, but she and Brian hid well. Dorothy blinked, confused. What she heard refused to sink in. "Only now our father has changed," continued Eva. "He was diagnosed with an illness. He has little time left. No connections or money can help in such situations. He has reevaluated much on the brink of eternity, and he realised how wrong he was. The story with Cora haunts him. He wants to ask her forgiveness before it's too late, and he plans to apologise to Brian as well. Now, he is just a sick old man who wants to see his daughter before he dies and admit his mistakes. And he asked me to find my sister. I couldn't refuse him this request." How did you manage it?" asked Dorothy. "You said even detectives couldn't find them, but you did?" "I hired new detectives who also failed. Then chance played its role again. I stumbled upon a photo online. It showed a teacher with her class posing against some hills." "That's probably Mum with the 4th grade in front of the mine," Dorothy smiled. "They often went hiking there and sometimes took me along." "Yes, that was your mum. She had changed over the years, but I recognised her. One of the kids must have posted the photo on social media. I followed the link and found out the city and Cora's new workplace." "It's his fault. He's to blame for what happened to Mum." Dorothy clenched her fists under the table. Eva sighed, but didn't argue. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said, shaking her head. "But as long as a person is alive, they can make amends. There's always a chance." "He's alive, but Mum isn't," Dorothy reminded her. "How will he ask her forgiveness now?" "I'm afraid this news will devastate him. I could barely handle learning what happened to Cora. My parents, I haven't told them yet. They're hoping, waiting. Thank goodness for you. You're like a ray of light, a living hope. Father, I think it will ease his pain if he asks forgiveness from you and from Brian, if he's willing to talk to him." Dorothy studied Eva's face intently. She finally understood why this woman seemed so familiar. She saw almost the same features every day in the mirror. Aunt and niece looked remarkably alike. Now Dorothy understood her mother's words. She remembered how her mother would often gaze at her with a smile, saying her daughter looked incredibly like someone very dear. She meant her older sister. Suddenly, Dorothy reached out to Eva impulsively. Eva understood and embraced her tightly. They sat like that, with Eva stroking Dorothy's hair. The girl pressed closer to her newly found relative, and the gesture felt so natural, so familiar, as if they had known each other all their lives. Dorothy felt she had gained another close and dear person, and tears streamed down her cheeks with this realization.